You're listening to the Spend 10K a Day podcast, brought to you by the performance marketing experts at Mute6. This is your source for cutting-edge insight into the world of online advertising from the team with more Facebook case studies than any other agency on the planet. Here are your hosts, Steve Wise and Stuart Anderson.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Spend 10K a Day podcast. Today we have an incredible guest. We have Bridget Johns from RetailNext. RetailNext is providing an amazing solution for offline brick and mortar retailers or even digital native retailers who want to really explore the offline selling through pop-up shops and other mechanisms. Think of RetailNext as the Google Analytics for retail, for offline retail. So Bridget, thank you so much for joining our podcast. Tell us a little more about yourself, your background, and RetailNext.
Sure, thanks for having me. As you said, RetailNext is a analytics platform for physical retailers. We're 100% focused on solving the problems that physical retailers encounter in their day-to-day operations. And in doing so, we aim to optimize the shopper experience to make sure that your physical shopping journey is as exciting and as friction-free as a digital one may be. I came into the business as a retailer, so I'm certainly not a technology lifer, as they might say. I ran stores and was a retail operator for many, many years before joining the company. And I currently oversee marketing and customer experience for the company.
As a lot of our audience runs e-commerce sites. So obviously this might be new to a lot of people in our audience, but I think it's incredibly valuable as try and transition that e-commerce experience to pop-up shops and offline retail. Tell us a little bit, when you were running e-commerce, or when you were running, should I say, brick and mortar stores before you got into RetailNext, what were some of the biggest pain points that you kind of ran into when you're running these stores? Obviously optimizing, products for the right audience, getting people in the stores. I love to hear about those pain points. I think those are fascinating before we go into the solution.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really interesting and that I've really sort of been kind of nerdy about along the way is just having layers of data and having contextualization to information that you may already have. So a really simple example is physical retailers have counted the number of people who walk into their stores since the very first retail stores were opened. Mm-hmm. It used to be with a pen and paper, and then it was, with slightly more sophisticated like beam counters or other kinds of counter technologies that eventually evolved into video-based solutions. And, when I was still running stores, there was certainly some data about how many people came into your store and what that meant in terms of conversion. And the more sophisticated systems would allow you to understand if those, analytics were different on weekends versus weekdays or in the morning versus the afternoon. But there was very little context to the information. So, as e-commerce and digital platforms started coming into our economy, it became pretty clear that data was such a big driver of that. And, it is incredibly frustrating to manage a store and not be able to understand the types of shoppers who are in your store at a particular time of day, where they're going, what categories or products they're interacting with, and how do you best optimize the store to take advantage of that. And, I think that that's been a big data divide between digital platforms and physical stores. And really for the first time, those data streams are starting to come together and work together in a way that I think is, of course, productive for the retailers themselves, but more importantly, makes for a more friction-free experience for shoppers themselves.
It's really interesting. I never, as a consumer, a person who's bought thousands of products, I never realized the amount of data that's going on me, like counting people as they walk into stores. I know it sounds rudimentary, but it's interesting to me because coming from the online world, I'm always focusing on conversion rates on websites, conversion rates on e-commerce sites. Tell us a little more, how does RetailNext, what do they do a little differently? I understand, helping people quantify like which products, optimize, that user experience offline the store. But, like if I'm in a brick and mortar retailer, why am I looking for a solution like RetailNext? Like what, and how do I quantify if it's working or not? Like how do I see like, okay, like basically like I have all this data in front of me. Now I'm making data-driven decisions offline. I'd love to hear more about like how retailers quantify and like make data-driven decisions from the data coming from RetailNext.
Yeah, well, I think if if you think about how you navigate digitally, and you go to a website, and then you're taken down a path of some sort in your shopping experience. So whether it's recommendations or suggestions, or that next product that you may see. And you think about your physical shopping experience, and many times when you walk into a physical store, sometimes you know exactly what you want to buy, and the friction can be in that the store doesn't have it, or that you can't find it. So you want to be able to optimize that journey for people who come to your store and they know exactly what they want. They want the black jacket that is in the window, and they want it in a size 6. And their mission is to fulfill their desire as quickly as possible. But sometimes people come into your store and they just want to explore and navigate and have a different kind of shopping experience. And I think in both examples, being able to provide the ease of navigation and the sort of magic of physical retail is really, really important. And without data, it's really like everything you do in your store, from what's on the mannequin in the front window to where you have handbags versus shoes versus denim, for example, as an apparel retailer, is all traditionally it's all been based on gut feel and intuition. And I think that everything that we consume has evolved somehow based on data and the understanding of how of the preferences and the profiles of the people who are consuming. So if you think about your music or hotels or any other kind of consumption, there's some there's been an evolution of how data drives those decisions for you.
And what kind of data? Like, I'm just trying to visualize this. So say I have a brick and mortar store. I have a suit shop, and like I have 20 people that come in. 5 of those people look at the first black suit. The other 10 are looking at shirts and pants. And like, what data? I'm just trying to picture what this looks like. Like, what am I looking at on the RetailNext platform that's gonna kind of show like, okay, do I put the black suit up in front at the top? Like, my best sell is, I guess it aggregates some of your best sellers. It aggregates the time of year. I'm just trying to picture what that looks like.
Yeah, so the platform is primarily powered by video. So RetailNext has developed a proprietary video sensor that does a couple of things that are unique in the market. The first thing it does is it collects the most precise measurement on a sensor. And through the video analytics, it takes video essentially and turns it into tracks or measurement paths of shoppers and how they navigate. So we take the navigation of a person who enters the door and would measure that engagement from one sensor to the next and throughout the full path of navigation. So a couple of important points on that. First is that the data and those tracks are aggregated and anonymous. So I don't know exactly who is walking through your store, but I do know with great precision where they're going. So somebody walks into the store, they go right, they stop at the fixture that has red sweaters, and then they next go to a fixture that has black sweaters, for example. Maybe they pick up something at both of those areas of the store, and they make their way to the fitting room. So being able to understand metrics such as traffic, dwell, and dwell time at various areas within the store allows a retailer to take that data turn it into insights around shoppability or engagement or exposure within the store, and really drive a more efficient operation in store.
That's really cool. Like that's really interesting to me, because I'm thinking numbers. I'm thinking about conversion rates. I'm thinking about times a day conversion rates. I'm thinking about sizes. How do I put the best size up front? How do I even, like, if I'm a retailer and I have brick and mortar and I have e-commerce rolling, how do I know, like, which products to put from a supply chain in my store and which products to put, on the website? Because a lot of retailers now are obviously starting to open up their own stores. So the question is like, from a supply chain, how do I make sure that the best products are always stacked in the stores? And with RetailNext, it seems like through the aggregation of all this data using video and sensors, you can really see a lot of these real-time analytics, which is going to drive a lot of purchasing decisions, correct?
Yeah, and I think what's really cool as you think about these digital natives opening stores is that the data really can flow two directions. So if you see items that are trending really well online, and as you say, and you're really trying to optimize your inventory management, say you have excess inventory of these products, you can put them front and center in the store and see if that helps move the inventory. Or if you see a trend that is shifting in store to increase sell-through of a particular item, you can really understand with your inventory levels and the data that you have around both the in-store navigation and the online navigation. Do you promote those products online so that you can increase sell-through, or if you have inventory gaps, you dial that back, and how do you work your inventory across both your physical and your digital properties to make sure that you are selling as many items at full price as you can, yep, and cycling through your inventory in the most efficient way.
So I guess a lot of our readers or a lot of our listeners, they all have the same question. I get this question 20 times. Now, I don't know if you guys have a solution for this, but attribution. Our partners and everyone who listens to this podcast is running a lot of Facebook ads. Is there any way through your platform, do you provide a solution to any way possibly attribute how someone actually came into the store, where they came from? Is there, and I know that's really hard. I know Facebook is obviously come out with their, offline conversion attribution, but is that the problem that you guys are tackling, or are you more focused on just the optimization of the store?
Yeah, so up until now, we've been really focused on the optimization of the store. I will say that with the introduction of our Aurora sensor last year, it really opens the opportunities for retailers to start solving that attribution question. The sensor itself is, in addition to the onboard video, it also has built-in Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and beacon capabilities. So it has the ability to take that in-store measurement and tie it to what is happening digitally, either through a guest Wi-Fi logon or a beacon or Bluetooth. So the technology is definitely evolving to the point that I think attribution will be more easily tackled on the digital to physical store piece of it. I think it's a little early to see it happening with a lot of robustness, but I think it is something that we're pretty close to.
Yeah, I could just imagine my store experience is if I see a Yankees jersey, which I recently bought a Yankees jersey because I'm a big New York sports fan, and I went into a sporting goods store and I saw the Yankee jersey, and I was just very curious, like, can I get this product cheaper on Amazon or another website? And seeing that Yankees jersey, it induced what we call a brand search. It obviously induced me to start looking on other websites while on my phone. Well, the question is, through technology, can we attribute that where that Yankees jersey was in the store was what motivated me to do a search online, and actually maybe attribute that conversion back to the brick and mortar? It's really, because it's an attribution game. I get it, and I think everyone gets it, but that's huge. If you guys could be a solution for that. That would be something I think everyone would be really excited about.
Yeah, we think so too.
Cool. So beyond just the RetailNext, what do you think the future is of brick and mortar retail as far as like relating to e-commerce? I know that's a very open-ended question, but you guys are at the forefront of everything, innovative in brick and mortar retail. I went to the Camarillo outlets in Southern California this week, and Sunday afternoon, and the whole place was like dead. There was no one there. There was probably 20 cars at gigantic outlet mall, and I think like how can we infuse, and how could we bring a solution to the market that can infuse people to go back to brick and mortar? Or like, what do you think that solution is, if I ask that correctly?
Yeah. So at RetailNext, our perspective is that physical retail is certainly not dead, but it is radically transforming. I believe that in 10 years, you will look back at this period of time and say that it was, a period of massive disruption. And it's not just that physical retail, some legacy physical retailers are challenged, but I think it's also just the way that physical retail has been brought to market, and the purpose of physical stores. I think all of that is changing. So when we think about the retail landscape, there are kind of 5 big trends that we are focused on. And I think that these play into both the technology as well as the mindset of bringing the digital to the physical and back again. So the first I would say is that we believe that there has been this overinvestment in e-commerce. And we believe that, as most people know, it is very hard to have a profitable e-commerce only business. Unless you're Amazon, it is almost completely impossible. So it's very expensive to acquire customers. It is very expensive to maintain, very hard to broaden your reach. So we think that there will continue to be some shift of investment from e-commerce into other kinds of experiences, whether they are pop-up stores or a physical store network or other kinds of physical partnerships. We think that's a pretty important one.
So what you're saying, just so I'm clear, what you're saying is that to sustain an e-commerce site, you need to bring people from different areas into your funnel for both online and offline, correct? It's just on.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree with that.
So the second is, we believe that we still are over-malled in the country, but we believe that there are really good malls and very, very productive malls, and there are malls that probably won't survive this cycle. So we expect that there will be fewer locations for physical retail, but they'll be much, much better. So if you're ever in, Northern California, in San Jose, we have a Westfield property here, Valley Fair, that is impossible to find a parking spot, even on a Wednesday afternoon. So that mall is definitely not suffering the same challenges as the one you just spoke about. Mm-hmm. And it's a great shopping experience. It has a fantastic assortment of retailers. It has entertainment. It has, awesome restaurants. So it's, a destination for sure. And we think that, that is for sure the future of multi-tenant retail, having this kind of mixed experiential environment. And, I think that staying focused on creating that broader experience is an important strategy for the mall operators for sure.
Yep.
The third kind of trend that we talk about, which may be a little biased because of our kind of technology focus, but we still believe that the in-store experience is your best marketing. I think if you can walk into a store and you can have a fantastic connection to a sales associate or an environment that is physical, it is going to beat out a digital experience every single time. That one of the challenges is I think that not a lot of retailers are as focused on the in-store experience as they should be. but you get somebody in your store, you know they're there for a reason, and it's a missed opportunity if you don't make the most of it.
I think that,
which kind of leads to.
Go on. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say it kind of leads to our fourth trend. That is, all of that being said, we believe that retailers no longer have the luxury of waiting until Black Friday to turn a profit. So stores have to be set up to run profitably year-round, or mostly year-round, because as we've seen the last two holiday seasons, you don't get that same huge spike in sales volume around the holidays in physical stores as you have in years past. Those numbers continue to come down, and that's the highest percentage of e-commerce growth happens around the holiday season. And staying focused on creating a retail environment that turns a profit throughout the year, I think, is really important, or else you will end up going the way that many retailers have this year.
Cool. Interesting. No.
And then I think just to round it out, our fifth big trend that we talk about is this notion that brands continue to go direct to consumer. And that direct-to-consumer model is really important. I think it's one of the reasons that department stores are so challenged right now, is that brands really want to find a way, and it's cheaper than ever, right, to connect directly to your consumers and build that relationship, one-to-one with them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at it from a different stratosphere. We're always looking at from an e-commerce conversion rate. Our Facebook is our shopping mall, and we're always trying to put the right image, the right experience in front of this user on Facebook. Very similar to how a shopping mall or a department store would look. I look at Facebook as the biggest digital shopping store out there, carrying every brand you can imagine, carrying every product you could imagine, and it's basically very similarly. It's where Facebook optimizes the user experience toward what most likely people are going to be interested in. I think that as these offline brands have more success in e-commerce, I think what I'm seeing is that they're putting a lot less attention to detail into obviously what you just said, the in-store experience. And I think personally, I think the evolution is connecting that in-store experience with the online experience. I think that having a mixture of the two and having a really centralized platform to provide analytics on both and trying to see trends on both and comparing the two, I think is really interesting. I think you look at it very similarly to the way we look at it. I think we're always focused, return ad spend, return on time, return on every piece of creative we do, and obviously I think that leveraging the RetailNext platform, I assume that a lot of your retailers are also looking at, people coming in the stores. What is the conversion rate? How can we up the conversion rate by putting different products in different places? How can we make this a seamless shopping experience? Correct?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because for us, we have some legacy retailers and brands that are super sophisticated with data around in-store. So I don't want to take anything away from them, but they are few and far between. What we're seeing is a lot of the digital natives that have chosen the RetailNext platform to power their stores, people like Untuckit or Lolly and Pops or Allbirds. Beta is another really good example. Like all of these digital natives, new commerce kind of retailers or brands have such a voracious appetite for the data, and they know what to do with it in store. So they're really building this kind of data-first platform that allows them to understand the physical shopping experience in ways that nobody has before. And I think that is really the future. To me, that is the future of retail. Like all of these emerging brands are totally turning the model on its head. And in my opinion, it's one of the reasons that a lot of the legacy retailers are struggling to survive, and why you've seen so many bankruptcies this year, is because there is quite frankly, there's a better way to do it. Yep. And I think for a lot of retailers, it's hard to get away from legacy investments and technology stacks and process and all of these things. And when you have one or two or three stores as a starting point, it's manageable to take a small bite of the apple and then grow from there.
Could agree with more everything you said. I think taking it from a data-driven perspective, I think these companies are moving quicker. They understand, customer acquisition. They understand, providing a personalized experience. 100% agree. The last question, which I've been kind of holding off till the end, which I think is really interesting. We're seeing all these native brands, native commerce brands, the Allbirds, the Untuckits of the world, moving over from digital only to native. If I'm a brand, I'm doing very well digitally. I've built an amazing business, and I'm considering going from online to offline. Whether it's a pop-up shop or department store, whatever. What advice would you give this brand? What do they need to know? What resources? This is a huge transition, a huge investment. I think back to when Apple first started the Apple Store. Really interesting. What are the native digital brand needs to know before they make that transition to offline?
Yeah, I think there are a few things that we talk about with our partners that are opening first stores. I think the first thing is it sounds a little counterintuitive, but with that first invest in the physical location. So I think you can. Every week we hear of a new concept that is like a pop-up store for digital native retailers or whatever it is. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to test different markets and different locations without having to sign long-term leases and invest in expensive build-out. So I think that's the first thing is to, just be really mindful of that investment for the first couple of stores and prove it out before you start spending too much money. The second thing is, really use all the data that you have from your e-commerce business. Where are your loyal customers, and where do you think that people will be the most excited about you opening a physical location? And then test it in, a pop-up or in some way that doesn't break the bank. For example, Bird store in San Francisco is in the back of their office. So it was super inexpensive for them to open it. It is a fantastic shopping experience. It is not where a legacy retailer would have chosen to put a store. But I tell you what, on a Wednesday morning, the place is packed. So they have the ability to connect to their consumers, to let their consumers know where they are and drive traffic into the physical store. And they don't have to pay, prime real estate rates.
You could also see a lot of this, you bring up a great point, Bridget. A lot of this data that you could see inside of Facebook. You could see exactly, where your best consumers are, and you could also even run ads directly in these specific areas when you have a pop-up store to really say, hey, we're opening a pop-up store here. For every person who walks in, you get, say $10 off or something like that. Correct?
Yeah, I think there's definitely the opportunity to leverage a lot more information at a location level.
Cool. So just a quick recap. Understanding, your data, obviously very important. Where, picking locations, using a pop-up store initially, and then really testing out all the different locations. Start being very, I guess, to summarize it, being very agile in your methodology.
Yeah, I think being agile is super important because the is very different than your digital one, and very few retailers get it 100% perfect the first time. It's certainly something you want to iterate on, and allowing yourself the flexibility before you invest more heavily in a location, I think, is really key.
Very, very good stuff. I've learned a lot on this. I've learned a lot from talking to you, Bridget. I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to really explain, you're both what RetailNext is, as well as really just having a tabletop discussion on what the future of offline brick and mortar is. I think we're all curious as to what the future holds. I know I am, being an e-commerce marketer. I'm trying to figure out how does one live with the other, cohesively. But this has been awesome.
Yeah, no problem at all. It was a lot of fun.
Cool. Cool. So thank you so much for your time, and we will be in touch soon. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Bye-bye.